We've got about $43 million of unallocated capital over 4 years. And to give you some context, $43 million would not build one interchange. So it's a very different world. But what I tried to do was think about ways in which a relatively small amount of money could have maximal impact. And so it really is focused on things like community associations where they might need to fix their roof or do some renovations. It's focused on small surgical investments in parks because we just don't have any money to build big regional parks other than Haskayne Park that's under construction now. It's focused as well in a little bit of urban forestry. And interestingly, you'll see there's a small amount for LRV cars. And you might ask, why would we only buy 3 more cars when we need many multiples of that? And the answer is we currently have an order for 12 cars in, and 15 cars is when you get the volume discount. So this has been very surgical in terms of thinking about things that are relatively small but would have a big impact on people's quality of life in the city. The other motion that I'll be bringing forward is a motion to reduce the overall tax rate, but to focus those savings on business customers. So what I'm going to propose to council is that administration find another 1% in salaries and wages in the city, but essentially that 1% savings be allocated to non-residential customers. So as you know, we've got this big problem with the residential and non-residential shift due to the decline in the downtown property values. And so we're going to be talking in Q1 of next year about really the longer term solution for that. But I want to show business now that we clearly can do a little bit of it even now and that we're very serious about it. So out of that 90 million that's missing, if my proposal passes today, that will cover 16 million of that shift for this year, but it will also be a permanent shift. But at the same time, citizens, homeowners will pay exactly what we said they would pay at the beginning of this process. So given that, I think that's a very fair thing to do. It's not an undue burden on citizens, but it also helps small businesses understand that we've got their back, and it's just the first step in solving that problem.
But you'd still have to do more in the spring, I guess, if it's 16 million that you'd be generating. Yeah, you have to generate more in the spring, I guess.
That's right. So part of my motion is that in Q1, we're going to have a conversation at the city around 4 potential options. One is continuing that residential, non-residential shift and figuring out over what period of time, how many years you want to make that happen. Number 2 is using the new authorities that we've just been granted in the city charter, creating a new assessment class for small business so that small business and large business aren't asked to shoulder the burden at the same time. Obviously, I want to favor smaller businesses. Number 3 is looking at one-time funding as we've done in the past and looking at different sources of that one-time funding in order to do that. And then number 4 is continuing our advocacy with the federal and provincial governments. You know, I've asked them to match the $90 million the city has already spent in sheltering small businesses from this. So we'll have a better package in the spring. I don't want to do all of that this week because a lot of wheels are still in motion, but I'll say again, as I've said many times to those small businesses across the city, we've proven we've had your back for the last 2 years and we'll continue to have your back.
So 1% rollback in wages that the city signed to fund $16 million cut in non-residential property taxes.
Correct.
So is that from unionized staff?
To be clear, it's not, I want to just say it's not a rollback in wages for everybody. It's a savings in the wage account. And that includes a whole bunch of things, right? It includes all wages, benefits, overtime, everything, all together in one account. And I've been assured by city management that they think 1% is in a time when we're in union negotiations, that 1% is a realistic amount to ask for from that account.
Is that not filling vacancies that are there?
Yeah, it's a bunch of things like that. It's workforce management. It's looking at individual salaries and benefits. It's looking at the accounts as a whole. And they really do feel 1% is achievable.
What does it say when we look at all these motions, except for perhaps one that's going to come right at the end? Really, there's not a lot of change in terms of the number, the magic number.
Yeah,
what is that really sort of saying?
It's been a very interesting budget process versus in the past. This is my 9th budget. And usually there are people who are saying, I don't want this, I do want that, and so on and so on. There's been very little of that. In fact, there's only been 2 motions One was to give a little bit of money back to the fire department, and one was to cut a little bit of money from the library. That's been it. And I think what that actually says is that, you know, when I first started this job 9 years ago, we completely blew up the budget process and figured out ways where we could be much more open much earlier in the process. You know, in the old days, it really was true that the budget would come in with some untenable number so that council could look like heroes and cut it during the week. And we've gone away from that to something that's much more open, realistic, much more iterative. We've been working on it together for 9 months now, very openly with the community. And I think what it really says is, look, this is actually a very fair budget. And it also says that we've already found $607 million in savings. There's another $100 million in savings in this budget, but that those easy cuts just aren't there anymore.
So you don't have a big group that are saying, let's have big cuts, and you also don't have a big group saying, let's have some big spends.
That's exactly right, you know, because normally we have both. We have some people with a sword, and we have other people who are saying, wow, we've really underfunded this thing. And by and large, the increases in services in this budget are very modest, but they tend to be things that most people have a bit of a consensus on. And the cuts, most people also have a consensus on it. Frankly, I was a bit surprised, because in listening to some of my colleagues over the course of the last few weeks, I would have thought more people would have taken out the sword. But as people have gone through the budget in detail, 668 pages, line by line, they found that the sword has already been wielded.
Anything else?
If admin can find these savings at the last minute, can it also not find another small amount to reduce the tax increase?
Well, that's exactly what this is, right? But my direction is actually to focus that reduction only on business. But that's exactly what this is. This was a question of how much more is there, and rather than take that across both residential and non-residential that we normally do, we're trying to focus that just on the residential, understanding the problems the business is facing.
But can Mr. Fielding go deeper?
No, this is the number we negotiated. All right?
On the LRV cars that
Yes.
you want, are those the C-train replacements?
That's
Is
right.
there- So
we
how-
need, I can't remember the exact number. It's in the 60 range, and this is 3. But it's something.
What's the time frame on this? If you place the order now, when can you?
The order's in, and so we have an order for 12 that's in, but if we bump it up to 15, we get a bit of a volume discount, and those will start to be delivered over the next year or so.